For the last 30 days, I challenged myself to become a runner. Why? Because I absolutely hate running. And I know that sounds backwards, but stick with me. I have always hated running. Ever since I was a kid, I despised any moment that I had to move my body any faster than walking. As I begrudgingly got through rec league soccer as a kid and eventually ultimate frisbee in college for some reason, I began to wonder if pain was truly the only answer when it came to running, or if there was more. Fast forward to now, and that's exactly what I wanted to challenge myself to figure out. Plus, I just got married about a month ago, and I'm now in a new chapter of life. It's a chapter that is more inquisitive, filled with less hatred, and is asking questions like, can I actually fall in love with something that I once despised? I decided to spend the next 30 days trying to answer that very question, with the hope that by the end of 30 days, I'd have a new outlook on the sport that I once hated, and also a new way to improve my overall fitness and overall health. If, however, I failed to run consistently for 30 days, I'd further reinforce my deep insecurity that I'm not able to accomplish anything in this life, and that no matter how badly I want to change, I just can't, and that would make me very sad. With all this in mind, I set out on my quest to fall in love with the sport of running, but before I could go on my first run, I needed something very important: running shoes. I'm looking to start running. I've never ever ran before in my life, and I just want to start. So I'm looking for like a good shoe to buy and maybe some other stuff.
Yes, no, I hear you.
After trying on a couple of pairs of shoes and a few shirts, some of which were definitely not the answer, I got what I needed. I was ready. And best of all, I was excited. I got home, I put everything on, and decided to hit the pavement. How dorky is it to be wearing 100% on running? I feel like I'll have the most mobility I've ever had. Look at me. My entire new personality. I found an easy route around where I lived, and I started jogging. In fact, I started running. I was challenging myself after all, so I wanted to see if I actually had the endurance to sustain a fast and uncomfortable run. And as soon as I did that, all of those feelings from before came back. The pain, the heavy breathing, all of it. And it reminded me that this is gonna be pretty hard. All right, first run down, a million more to go. All in all, it was a great run. I was optimistic for the runs ahead, but there was just one problem. I'm pretty short on time, as we all are these days. I have a full-time job, a full-time side business, a wife, and a mental sanity to keep intact. My only option for running was the early morning, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not a morning person. But the best way to dive into things that you don't like is by just starting, and that's exactly what I did. So the next morning, I woke up at 5:45, got dressed, and headed out on my second ever run. But this time, I downloaded the Nike Run Club app. I had heard a lot of good things about their guided running programs, and it seemed like an easy way to learn more about the run that you were on and to also stay consistent. The app also has various running programs that span either over 4, 8, or 12 or so weeks, and it conveniently had a beginner program that I got into. Okay, just got done with my second run ever, and felt good. I definitely was more aware of keeping my heart rate down and keeping my pace nice and slow. However, the few runs that I had done and continued to do for the first week were nothing but easy runs. These were recovery runs that weren't really meant to push you in any way, which meant that what happened next was even harder. I probably could have guessed it, but the next stage of running after you leave the nest of beginner easy runs are interval distance runs. I'd never really done any of these kinds of runs in any serious capacity, so when the time came for my first interval run, everything that I had been doing was put to the test. Now, in an interval run, as the name suggests, you're meant to run fast in intervals. Duh. However, this was the first opportunity in which pushing myself to run a bit faster every time was warranted and a little bit daunting. There were a total of 10 intervals to do, and I decided that with each one, I'd run just a little bit faster than the last, and that's exactly what I did. I distinctly remember feeling runner's high for the first time, which I initially thought was a complete myth. But it turns out if you run correctly, you can actually feel really, really good while you do it. I finished the first interval run with flying colors and even more confidence that this was all gonna work out. Next up for this week was also a distance run. Up to this point, the amount of time that I've spent running consecutively was only about 20 minutes per run, so the fact that this one involved running for over 30 minutes seemed absolutely insane to me. I thought to myself about the importance of pacing myself, something that historically I hadn't been the best at growing up. I really had to make sure that I broke down the barrier that said faster equals better or more distance equals I'm a good runner. With all of that in mind, I set off on my first distance run, and much to my surprise, it actually went super well. It felt super encouraging to me that I kept running the whole entire time that I was out, and I never dipped below a baseline feeling of tired that I had become accustomed to. Now, at this point, I'd only done a couple of weeks of running. There were still so many more to get through, and honestly, I remember at this point feeling like I was on a high. I distinctly remember the feeling of being actually excited to run every single morning I had the opportunity to, but like anything that goes up, that too came down. The next part of my journey to become a runner was met with a certain level of adversity that I didn't exactly predict when I started. I'd probably guess it was the lack of sleep catching up to me. My runs took place at no later than 6 a.m. every single morning, and it's realistically the only time that makes sense to run. But after 2 to 2.5 weeks of not only waking up early, but getting less than an ideal amount of sleep on most nights, I began to lose sight of what I was doing in the first place. The next couple of weeks of runs repeated similar patterns to the runs in the weeks before. Speed runs followed by distance runs, and finally recovery runs. And through these patterns of runs and the adversity that I began feeling, I began to recognize certain lessons that I was actually learning and that I began to lean on the days where running wasn't the first thing on my mind. Here's a couple of them. So week 3 is when the fatigue really began to set in, but what I was reminded of either by myself or through the use of the Nike Running Club app was this. Sometimes starting is the hardest part. I found that on the days where waking up was a little bit harder or that I was dragging my feet to get out the door, all that I had to do really was put one foot in front of the other and keep doing that over and over. Eventually, I'd end up outside and I'd have no other choice than to start running. By taking the necessary steps it took to just get downstairs and out of my building and to start running, I could count on myself to always do the runs that I needed to reach my goal of becoming a runner in 30 days. As I pressed through week 3, another thing became extremely evident. I was basically doing the whole process of running, the prep, the execution, and the reflection as automatically as possible. That was helpful for the obvious reason of getting me outside even when I didn't want to be, as well as something that I never expected. And that is that having a routine that leads to making yourself 1% better is super key to keeping yourself motivated and maintaining a level of continuous improvement that lasts for a lifetime. I mean, it really got to a point where I would wake up and the first thing that I would grab would be my phone to open the camera app to document me waking up. And I began to have certain places around the house where I would always set my phone to record the things that I was doing, like putting on my socks, putting my shoes on, and even saying the number of run that I was on.
Run number 4. This is run number 6. Today is run number 8. Run number 10.
People always talk about the importance of a routine, but I don't think you really recognize it or really appreciate it until you have one for yourself, especially a simple one that revolves around a very objective goal. Now, for this last tip, I had to learn it the hard way, and it was painful in more ways than one. When I initially set out on this challenge, I was super excited to change my life in a big way if I kept it up. But that was just the thing. If I kept it up. The last tip I learned was to listen to your body, even if it meant skipping a run. So far up to this point, I had run every other day except for the weekends where I would prioritize rest and recovery. However, on one particular weekend leading up to the end of the 30-day challenge, I was asked to teach martial arts at an outdoor event up in Washington. Yes, I teach martial arts. That's for another video. Anyways, I ended up doing this crazy sweep maneuver over and over again that led to some pretty extreme strain in the old leg department. Hours after teaching, my legs were absolutely fried. Initially, I thought I could push through and still make the run the next morning, but I was wrong. For the first time, I skipped, and it felt pretty bad. I thought to myself, did this mean the challenge was off? Was I no longer a runner, or more importantly, was I a failure? The answer is of course not. I learned something pretty key that day though, and that is that there's a pretty big difference between quitting and being smart about listening to your own body. If I truly am to improve my life over the long term, then it can't be through the lens of running for longer equals good or running fast equals better runner. Instead, the name of the game when it comes to self-improvement, be it mental or physical, is sustainability. Going on that run while my legs were still cherry parfait with a side of ice cream might have done more damage than was actually worth it. It was definitely a tough mental hurdle to get over, but I learned very quickly that the world keeps spinning no matter if you feel bad about skipping something. Everything's gonna work out and it'll be fine. Turns out taking a break is a good thing, and it's not just applicable to running. I got right back in the saddle the moment my legs felt better, and I'm super glad that I did. Getting back to running after a few days of break reminded me that I am, in fact, the kind of person to stick to something if I want to change, and that I am a runner, and that I do love running. And just like that, I am proud to say that I reached my goal. I became a runner in 30 days, and I've completely flipped the script on what I thought running was, and I'm proud to say that I look forward to doing it every chance that I get. If you're gonna walk away with anything from this video, or if you're gonna run away, I guess, with anything, it would be this. Try something new. For a while. Make it into a habit. Study how you feel about it. Track your progress and get better with every session. You might surprise yourself, because I sure did. All right, if you made it this far in the video, consider liking the video as it helps out the channel a lot, and also consider subscribing because that also helps and enables me to make more videos like this and explore my curiosities of optimizing my life and sharing them with you. If you want to see more of me, here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll really like, and I happen to think you'll probably really like it too, so you should probably watch it. With that, thanks for coming along on this journey with me. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got something out of it. And remember, keep scrolling mindfully. I'm a runner, baby.